People are saying that JK is going to end the contract with the label and potentially leave BTS. People are also talking about concerns of the 2026 comeback and that whole situation. And then we also have people addressing the fairness that exists or maybe doesn't exist within the group for their comeback. So hey Dumplings, it's Dave Disci. Let's get into it. This is something that I really didn't think too much about, and it of course makes a lot of sense that I didn't think too much about it because it's not something that is really in the forefront, I guess, of people's minds. But there were a lot of people, especially the Korean side of X or Twitter, that talked about the fairness of the BTS members individually, of them coming back. We will be talking about these specific comeback dates and all that stuff a little bit later on in the video, but a lot of people were talking about it being 2026 and the members coming back towards the end or the middle of 2025. If it was done in that way, and let's say they did come back in the middle of 2025, then they would have a little bit of time to rehearse, get an album together, do all that stuff, and then they would have to go straight into promoting the album and then straight into touring. So no break. And if you know anything about touring, it is extremely stressful. Touring really takes out a lot of you because there is a lot of traveling involved, and the moment you get settled down or potentially comfortable, you'll have to move. But a lot of times, a lot of people who are on tour still need to train and rehearse, so you're getting up early to do that. You're really not sleeping much. You also might be jet lagged. So it's very stressful for the body and mentally. Fortunately, if you do get into the rhythm of your own music and you know the choreography really well, you know the lyrics, then you don't have to do too much of that and think about it. It just kind of becomes automatic. Your body just kind of does the routine. However, what people were talking about in regards to fairness was this idea that there were several of the members getting the opportunity to take a break before they have to get back into it in 2026. However, the last few people that would be coming out of the military would have to go straight into it, and it would be really stressful for them, I would imagine. And the people on Twitter debate this idea of whether it's fair to have a comeback date so close to the military ending date. And again, this is something that I really hadn't considered because I just really didn't think about it, I guess. And it, to me, of course, makes sense that you would go straight from one thing to the next thing. Like, of course, in my head it goes, well, if you're done eating, then you go back to work. And people typically do things in order without always needing a break. However, of course, being in the military and doing a comeback are two very exhausting things, and they likely would want a break in between those things. It's just not the same as doing a to-do list. Of course, it does seem to be a little bit unfair, but it is, of course, up to the individual member if they want to jump right into it. If they decide that they do want to take a week or two off, and quite frankly, I can't really imagine them taking longer than that. I really feel like they don't like taking too much time off, and if they even wanted to do that at all. I'm sure they would be able to find the time to do that. Bottom line is, we can wait another month or so for a comeback if they wanted to take even a month off. The community definitely understands and will understand, and what is another month after we've been waiting, what, at this point for years? However, there are also a lot of people who just want the members to leave the label. I do believe in part of it has to be due to the fact that they believe that the military and the group situation is unfair, the one that I just mentioned. Some of it, I'm sure they believe is unfair because specific members won't be able to get a break after the military, as I just said. And other things is them feeling like the group is hindering that individual member's growth. JK is someone that a lot of people want to leave the label, and I said this before, and I'll say it again. Them wanting to have JK leave the label, in my opinion, is them just wanting JK to leave the group. Because they are trending JK leave the label, but that is very different from them trending that BTS in general should leave the label. So why specifically just JK? And then if you read more into it as to the reason as to why they believe this, and they believe that the label is hindering JK's growth. However, JK doesn't really have to grow, if that makes sense. Like, the growth should be focused on the group as a whole rather than any individual member, because as of right now, they all want to come back as a group. So for people to focus on just one member, it's pretty clear that they just want that one member to go solo. I stumbled across a specific amount of people trending for JK to leave the label, and I was quite baffled by how many people were tweeting it, how many people were making replies to it, and just how many people were so obsessed with this, because someone who is looking from the outside, right, would obviously see something like this and then think that it's manic. Now, obviously people who are in the label or the label themselves aren't going to maybe be super confused by things like this because they see it all the time. However, a PR person, any person who would be considered a corporate professional, is going to look at these manic tweets and be like, this is crazy, because it is absolutely insane. And instead of it coming across as, oh wow, JK really needs to be let go of his contract, we should really pursue that, it more so comes across as, wow, these people saying this are crazy, let's not listen to them. And one of the other things that is a reason why this trend would never pick up, nor would it become this huge trend and really ever result in JK leaving the label if he wants to, is because what exactly is the threat? Should I say that the community is making up that if JK doesn't leave, that they would keep trending this? The only way to get the label to actually want to let JK go would be to just not buy his music. If his music completely flops and no one listens to it, then the label would let him go. But even that, the label probably just wouldn't do that. Then they probably would just keep him in the group. So this is why I think it's crazy, because in no world where we're trending this would this actually happen. There's no world in which the label is going to let JK go or end the contract. It just would not happen. It definitely is not going to benefit them monetarily, and it's not necessarily up to JK to decide if he just wants to leave if he signed a contract. So I think that that is very interesting, and that is a reaction that I often see within the community. I think it's a little bit much. I think people should definitely think about this a little bit more and stop wasting their efforts and trending things like this, because it's not that they're just sitting there and copying and pasting something a few times and then they're actually just okay and then be done, but they're actually feeling distressed about it. They actually wake up every morning and tweet this because they hope that one day JK would leave the label. And that, in my opinion, is a little bit manic, right? Albert Einstein's definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result, which is exactly what these people are doing. So I say this with genuine care and love. To the people who are doing this, please go find a therapist and go find help, because this is not okay. Now, speaking of the 2026 comeback and contract expirations, a lot of people believe that the BTS contract is ending very soon. And of course, we need to discuss how realistic that actually is. So we know that BTS debuted in 2013, then renewed their initial contract in 2018. This was super interesting because their initial contract didn't even expire until 2020, as the contracts are about 7 years. But since people believe that they renewed in 2018, that the expiration to that contract in 2018 would have ended around 2025. And while definitely possible, it seems like BTS renewed their contract again in 2023, but this time for an undisclosed amount of time. There were some reports that the label was saying that the contract does extend throughout 2025 and 2026 to include the comeback. However, this is where people have gotten a lot of concerns from. Recently, the CEO was asked during a conference what was going on with BTS. He reportedly said that they were waiting for BTS in 2025 and 2026, but then said that there were no solid plans at all still on any activities. This is extremely interesting to me, because if the boys start coming back within the next few months, there should already be a plan, at least, potentially music already written, or at least potential ideas on what the tour would look like and what their next concept photos would look like. In fact, they should probably even start teasing that the members would start coming back now and provide some photos or some interesting concepts on what they would like the comeback to be. However, I can definitely understand why they would have not chosen to do that, as they realize that the boys can't work or contribute to the work right now, and they don't want to start putting out promotional material while the boys are in the military and can't contribute to it. However, I do think it's interesting that they have no clue, or saying that they have no clue or no idea of what the comeback would be. I mean, if the CEO had said something like, we have some thoughts on what we would like the comeback to look like, that would be a different thing, and I think that's okay for him to say too. Like, if it was a lie that he really didn't have anything, I think it would still be okay to say that he did, because it wouldn't hurt him. If anything, I think that would help him, because people can get excited about it. And maybe even the shareholders could get excited about it, I don't know. And then if he prefaced it with, we can't really tell you, and we do have ideas, that's also a little bit different, right? I would say that that's good. And I think it would have quelled a lot of fears within the community. But it's interesting because saying that they have no idea, alongside the fact that people believe that the contract is expiring soon, has made a lot of people feel like the comeback might not ever happen. However, I will say this, the contract is not up, and it's not up in 2026. So unless that comeback is delayed to like 2028 or something, then there might be some concern at that point. But there isn't now. And the label might be trying to let the boys figure out what their comeback is going to look like by themselves. So they might be putting more trust into them, which is very cool. I can totally see the label doing that. So no fears yet. Let's just wait and see. I do believe that the comeback will happen. Let me know what you think. Make sure you check out Patreon for more videos. Link down below. Thank you. Just leave a comment right here. Love you. Bye.